Welcome to The Geek in Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. Live from New York, it's Marlene Gaybauer.
And live from Houston, I'm Greg Lambert. And today we have with us, returning actually, is Serena Wellen, who's Vice President of Product Management, LexisNexis Legal and Professional. And she's returning to the show to talk to us about the newly launched Lexis Protégé tool. So Serena, welcome back to the Geek in Review.
Great to be back.
Yeah, so Lexis Protégé is described as a highly personalized AI assistant that is tailored to each legal professional. So can you elaborate on how Protégé customizes its responses and workflow suggestions based on an individual lawyer's or firm's habits and preferences?
Sure. So our vision for AI at Lexis is that it will become increasingly more useful as it becomes more personalized. So as we like to say, the future of AI is personal. And Protégé uses basically three methods for personalizing its responses. The first is a user profile that contains multiple attributes about a user, starting with things like practice area, jurisdictions, subscribed products, formatting rules, even preferred writing style. And then second, the user's context. What are they working on? What's the conversation that they're having in the product? And then the third thing is the user's own documents. So either through a connection with their document management system, their DMS, or via document upload. Eventually, the user's profile is going to include the user's past behavior in Protégé, such as past documents viewed. And when Protégé appears within our other product offerings, such as our Microsoft 365 add-ins and apps like Lexis Create Plus and Lexis Connect, Protégé will know the context of what the user is doing in that other product and respond accordingly.
So Serena, on that, especially like the user profile, is there a lot of upfront work that is done during the initial phases of bringing in Protégé into law firms so that it kind of, you know who the user base is, and I'm assuming like through the DMS and other ways, you kind of build that profile? Is that how it works?
Generally, I would say yes. We come in knowing certain things about our subscribed users based on the setup that happens for a new account that's subscribing. And especially if you're connecting in your DMS, there's work that we do to ensure that we have the right connection to the right documents, and all of the roles and permissions and all of the other governance is set up in the document management system is transferred so that we know that appropriately. So I just want to say here that we do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to setting up these profiles. And then it's up to the customer and the users to determine, do they want to opt into the system? Do they want to use personalization? Do they want to use their proposed profile or not? And then, what types of things do they want included? Because it's not an all or nothing proposition. It's really important when we talk about personalization to understand that this needs to be transparent to our users and they need to control it. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
What are some of the personalization options? Can you kind of give us some flavor on that?
Right. So one example I'll give is draft in my style. So I was an attorney for almost a decade, I think, maybe more, before I came to Lexis. The main thing that I did was draft documents. I was a litigator. I also spent time on the other side doing transactional work. But either way, most of my time was spent drafting documents or preparing to draft documents by, finding starting point, looking for clauses, etc. And the thing that I felt was special about my work and that I spent the most time on was my own drafting style, how I wrote, my voice. I put a lot of time into drafting and redrafting so that the arguments were as persuasive as they could be. They were clear, and that they represented me as an attorney. And so this is something we've heard from customers, and we want our profile in Protégé to be able to use samples of the user's writing style and apply those to the documents that we're generating on their behalf. So that's one example of what we're going to do with personalization.
And when you bring you had mentioned that, I guess, in the next sort of iteration, you're going to be able to sort of look at past documents. So I take it that the Protégé is sort of learning from that in terms of what was done in the past.
So yes, the idea of being able to look at a user's behavior, past work, and leverage that and base the response upon that, I think makes a lot of sense intuitively. And so I think people will understand and actually expect, as we've talked to users over time, that we will know them. We will know their work. We will know what they need, and they don't have to tell us the same thing every time they log on to the system, which is really frustrating.
Well, I'm going to dig a little deeper into the DMS here in a minute, but I do want to kind of talk about the integration with Microsoft 365. And so from my understanding is, Protégé integrates with, Microsoft Word, Outlook, Teams, Copilot, and with the idea of enhancing the workflow for the legal professionals. Do you mind sharing just a couple of use cases where, attorneys would use this integration with Office 365, and how you envision that impacts their productivity?
So I'll start by saying Protégé meets our customers where they want to work, and
which is an Outlook.
Yeah. Well, do people
Word.
really want to work in Outlook? Yeah. That's a sort of the more of a metaphysical question, but we do know that our customers spend, upwards of 80% of their time in Microsoft, in some cases more. So, and I think there's a reason for that. I'm a big fan of Microsoft. We work very closely with them in our partnership, and I think they're doing some amazing things right now that is making what they refer to as the modern office or modern work really, really possible. And I would refer to it as enlightened compared to how things used to be maybe as recently as 5 years ago. So what we're doing because of that is embedding Protégé within our add-ins and apps that customize Microsoft applications like Word for legal professionals. So what this does is it gives you powerful drafting tools with functionality like smart redlining or clause comparison, proofreading, and in our comprehensive drafting add-in, which is called Lexis Create Plus. And you'll have that alongside all of the generative AI capabilities of Protégé. So it gives you tools also for automated legal request intake, matter management, and collaboration in Microsoft Teams and Outlook with our MS Teams app for corporate legal, which is called Lexis Connect. Also alongside all of the generative AI capabilities of Protégé. So you can kind of see what I'm sketching for you is that in our customized for legal Microsoft-based tools, which are already very powerful and workflow oriented, we're bringing in this context-aware, now generative assistant that can and does know your data and know Lexis data. So another point I think I'd like to make here, though, is that Protégé, again, is contextual. So if you're in Lexis Create Plus, it'll interact with the canvas in Word. If you're in Lexis Connect, which focuses on matter management, it will interact with your matter data within the application. And I think what's very interesting to me in this space is that there's other Microsoft data available to Protégé. So if you think of Protégé as contextual in the Microsoft space, it can look at and explore data in the Microsoft graph, which is so rich. There's so much there about each of our users, and Protégé will be able to leverage that.
Just to call back on something that you had mentioned before, where you want to kind of write in your style. When you are in the Microsoft products, it's because I can tell you one of the first things that actually more than one of my attorneys said when AI came out was, this would be great. It can learn me and it can write in my voice, and so respond to an email, it can basically have an outline or a draft in my voice that I could, quickly edit. Is that something that you think this combination with Copilot and Protégé that I could tell my attorneys that this is now possible?
Yeah, I think that this space where we are building a custom engine Copilot for Protégé. So we're bringing Protégé into Copilot. And this means that you can leverage the best of both worlds. So you'll be able to use Copilot and all of the knowledge about, say, drafting your emails that Copilot knows. You'll also be able to leverage what Protégé knows and all about your legal data and about Lexis data and your profile that you use with Protégé, which includes examples of your legal writing style. So maybe your email writing style is, let's say it's professional, but it's not the same kind of voice and the same kind of cadences and language that you would use in an appellate brief, for instance, or especially something like a contract or a clause. Very different types of styles. We all have so many, right?
Do a little code switching on the type of writing that we're doing.
Exactly.
I want to keep this theme of integration going. So the integration of Protégé with the firm's DMS, that obviously is like a game changer. And it seems that the acquisition of Henchman earlier this year seems to springboard. So how does Protégé use the firm's DMS? How does it access, how does it use the firm's DMS to provide insights? And what specific tasks or challenges does this capacity solve for legal professionals? And will it help me make PowerPoint slides?
Really? Answer the last question first.
Yeah. Well, out of the gate, right?
That's all I care about right now.
Yeah, I hear you. I make a lot of PowerPoint slides myself. Out of the gate, not yet, is what I would say on PowerPoint. That's something that we're going to have to work on, PowerPoint, and I think we'll test the enthusiasm for Excel as well. That's another tool that
There's
I
a lot of enthusiasm for Excel. You just write that down right now.
Okay, I will. It's going to go on my list. I think game changer, Marlene, is really a perfect way to describe how we see this. So since we started working on Lexis Plus AI, and even before we launched it, customers were telling us that they wanted to be able to use their own data alongside Lexis data with Lexis Plus AI. And since we launched last year, it's really been their number one request. And I think, you guys completely understand why, but the power of being able to combine authoritative Lexis content and all of our know-how and things like Shepard's with the customer's own data and unlock what's trapped within document management systems, or the goodness of what's trapped within document management systems. I think we know that there's a lot that maybe needs to stay in there. But
maybe shouldn't be in there.
maybe shouldn't be in there. Yeah, we all have closets. It's the same kind of thing, closets and drawers. I I think there's tremendous potential here across so many use cases, but I'm just going to give you a couple of examples and really focus on the drafting phase, because it's one that's been really top of mind for me as I do this work with henchmen and with organizations' document management systems. So a key problem in drafting any agreement is introducing risk with untested language. So with Protégé, you can check your language, your clause language, against the common language in your DMS, as well as, or at the same time as checking against what's market from Lexis. And that right there, even though I think it seems fairly discrete, that's a huge amount of time and I think worry, because, drafting agreement is really all about avoiding the risk that in the future, something is going to fall apart, bite you, result in a lawsuit, etc. And so there's so much effort that goes up front into trying to figure out how do I come up with the best language and make sure it's not an outlier, it's not outside our negotiating positions, it is or conforms to what's in market for that language. So that's one. Another problem is misinterpretation or failure to adopt the best negotiation position when you're working through an agreement. And so understanding the evolution of a negotiation in a very granular way by being able to look at the history of what's changed. It's almost like, the DNA of an agreement and even a clause. Seeing how a provision has evolved over time is super helpful in avoiding this, departure from negotiating positions or taking positions that are going to be contrary, or even understanding how we've arrived at the position or the particular language that we're at now.
And is this sort of one document or set of documents, or can you sort of look across different types of negotiation documents and sort of see, if there's any sort of parallels or patterns?
That's a really interesting idea that you just mentioned, but it's really right now intended to focus on one set of documents, versions of the same.
Yeah, as an attorney is working through it. Exactly.
And then another example that I wanted to mention is unlocking the expertise in the organization. So particularly in large organizations, big teams, big law firms, I want to be able to see who has most frequently drafted an agreement type, even a clause type for a client, so I can leverage that expertise. Maybe I know something about that person, or they're a key partner on an account, but I also want to see who has done the most work in an area and be able to tap that person, or maybe look for some of their other work in an area. So this whole kind of like knowledge management zone for law firms in particular, I think is a very rich one, and one that they're very concerned about because their people are their greatest asset.
Well, we couldn't talk AI this year without talking about safety, security, and privacy. The three things that probably are the biggest barriers to bringing in new AI technology. So, given all of this concern around things like data privacy and legal work, how does Lexis Protégé ensure the internal work product, the sensitive documents, and user data remain secure and still take advantage of all the AI-driven insights as well?
I will say the security and privacy of our customer data is our number one concern. We are having a lot of conversations with our customers around Lexis Plus AI and their data. And to be perfectly honest, I'm surprised that they hadn't happened sooner. I think these conversations are really good and valuable and important. The last thing that we want to do is expose any risk to our customers. So this is really top of mind every day, and we devote a lot of resources and a lot of focus to it. So a few things that we do: we employ state-of-the-art encryption. We use commercial cloud infrastructure, private models deployed to our own private cloud with every user session completely walled off. So that's just the starting point. I would say personalized AI really further raises that bar for obvious reasons.
You're predicting my next question.
Yeah.
She's ready for you.
Yeah.
She's ready for you. She's a pro.
I am. I'm ready. Yeah. So this is why the personalization features in Protégé are completely transparent to the user and the customer and controlled by the user and the organization. So whoever uses these features has to opt in. They have to know what they're opting into. So there's a lot of transparency and information sharing that needs and education that we are doing to ensure that all of that happens. And once they do opt in, they need to be able to turn it off or on and have the data purged whenever they want. So this idea of control is central. I just wanted to point to a couple of other things. Customer documents in the DMS. So that's my dog's really cute bark.
It's Pod Dog.
Yeah.
Pod Dog 2. Pod Dog 2.
Introduce the dog. What's the dog's name?
Yeah, please introduce.
Yeah. So that's Lotus. She's a wire-haired fox terrier.
Very nice.
And a handful, I can tell already.
Yeah, she's looking at me.
That's good.
She's looking right at me, barking, saying,
"What you doing, Mom?"
Speak. So customer documents in the DMS. So Protégé uses all of the same controls and permissions that are contained within the DMS, which makes them, the kind of fortresses that they are. Protégé uses all of that so that the customers have the same governance of their DMS data, whether it's connected into Lexis plus AI and Protégé, or it's just sitting within their DMS. And then I would be remiss in talking about security and privacy if I did not say this next thing, which is super important. We do not use customer data to train our models.
So let me ask you a technical question then. The personalization of it, is that, because I think I could see where people might think, well, if I'm training it to know me, is that training your large language model, or is it kind of a separate way that it understands my writing style and my previous work that leverages it? So what do you tell people to kind of set their mind at ease on the personalization?
Right. We're not training our models with our customers' data. So when we think about training, there's kind of two things. Large language models are pre-trained, meaning they consume a lot of data, and that goes into the parameters and weight. Training is often used to refer to what we call fine-tuning. And fine-tuning happens after the model is already trained, and you can basically instruct the model to do certain things in a certain way and use certain information. And in that way, for the most part, when you do fine-tuning, you are not using any customer data to train the model. So the model's not actually learning in a permanent sense from the customer's data. In the fine-tuning sense, a lot of prompt engineering and instructions to the model are referred to as fine-tuning. And this is a lot of what we do. It's not all of what we do, but it's a lot of what we do in being able to use customers' past behavior and their data with the model to personalize a response. So if you can imagine, we can take, let's say, a chat history, and we can attach that to that user's profile. That profile will stay private and secure. And then when the model needs to know that information, we give it temporary access to that information for the purposes of providing a better, more personalized response.
So Protégé is set to introduce features like voice commands and multimedia processing and horizon scanning. I need to know what that means in 2025. So, how do you see these features transforming the way legal research and document review work?
Yeah, so horizon scanning is again, I think about it as managing risk. And so how do you prepare in the present for the future? If you can scan the horizon and sort of see those blips and be able to make predictions, that will allow you to prepare in the present for the future. And when we refer to horizon scanning, that's what we mean. It's really about being able to use as much as we know about the past and the present to predict the future. So if you think about our data and all of the data that we have in news, in legislation, and in law, being able to connect all of that together and use it to forecast. That's what we hope to do with horizon scanning.
She used the word forecast and predicted. So, I guess, how does that work? Is it recommendations, or is it based on this? This is where we think this is going.
Right. I think it's going to take a lot of different forms depending on the particular use case where the forecasting is needed. So it could take the form of recommendations, could take the form of analytics or a visualization that represents data and allows the user to explore different options, how things might turn out based on different factors. So we're looking at a bunch of different ways to work with both our data and potentially the user's data where that might be appropriate. I do want to talk a little bit about voice, because this has been kind of a passion project of mine for a few years now, if you don't mind.
Oh, no. Go ahead. I asked the question, and what do we say? We say that you answer the question, do you want to have it? So you go ahead.
All right. This isn't a deposition. I can explore. So briefly, I began exploring the application of voice technology to lawyers' workflows several years ago, around the time that Alexa and other voice-based assistants became widely available. I became very curious about this and how it might be used to solve some of the problems that our customers were having. And we built several prototypes and tested one of them with law students and several attorneys. And the problem that we began targeting based on our research is one that I'll call the interruption problem. So every time you stop reading or writing something to look up a term that's unfamiliar, find an example, consult a colleague, there's a cognitive tax. You have to reorient yourself and find your train of thought once again. Of course, this is made worse in the distraction era of so many things coming at us on our screens. So everyone is familiar, but there's a mental exhaustion factor here. There's also a time loss, because you would be surprised how much time it actually takes to reorient yourself to the work and pick up your train of thought. Tons of time is lost here. And because of the way they work, this plagues legal professionals, really. Not only are they constantly being interrupted by, emails and other requests, by the nature of their work, they can't know everything that they possibly need to know while they're pursuing it, while they're drafting a document or even talking to a client on the phone or something like that. They need to be able to stop and consult other things, other documents, follow up on workflow. And the testers in this project loved the idea of having a voice-activated service that could answer questions, find information, and guide them while they stayed in the flow of their original task, more or less. The problem was the technology of our prototypes was just not good enough for lawyers. It really needed to be precise, accurate, needed to be correct. And the voice technology, language understanding just wasn't there at that time. But it is now, which is so exciting. And not only is it there now, the translation, so being able to move from voice to text, text to voice, into other languages, is all there. So I'm really excited to solve that interruption problem with a voice-enabled protege. I'm looking forward to that. And I think, that's just one example of what voice technologies can do. I think you guys can think a lot of other use cases where this would be super useful.
Well, pretty soon we're going to hear like, hey, protege.
I love it.
So let me pull on that thread just a little bit. Do you think that the voice command is going to be very that the younger attorneys are going to be the users of that? And then also, do you see it them using it voice command at their desk, or do you see them using it on the phone, when they may be in transit, or just, I don't see a lot. I actually see more older attorneys using voice at their desk than typing. But how do you see it as far as the new generation coming in?
Yeah, I think that the new generation is very oriented towards voice and video. They use it in their daily lives all the time. And when we were doing the research, they told us as much. They said, I don't like to type. I don't like to text. I want to just be able to say what I need to say and move on. I think one of the constraints for law students and young attorneys has been that talking out loud in office environments and in places like the library and the classroom is not that acceptable. But now that we're in these hybrid environments where we're working in our homes a lot, and we have privacy, we can start talking and listening without disturbing other people, or having them listen in on our business too much. So I think they'll really like it. And as we know, older attorneys have long used voice and dictation as a way to accelerate their work and spend less time, doing things like summarizing depositions. But of course, now you don't need to do any of that. Large language models can summarize depositions for you and create timelines and all that sort of wonderfulness.
So one of the things, and I think Lexis got a lot of credit for this when you were doing the commercial preview and testing of Lexis Plus AI, was that you got a lot of client feedback. I remember there were portions where you actually paused anyone from using the product while you actually looked at the client feedback and then created kind of the next version to test out. So, what are some of the key improvements or features that you've been able to incorporate based on the feedback that you've been getting on Protégé? And what's kind of your methodology going forward for making sure that you continue to get that type of feedback and then build that into the product itself as needed?
So this involvement of our customers in our product development, I think, has been so exceptional. And the willingness of our customers, the enthusiasm that they have for engaging in this process has been one of the best experiences of my product management career. Product management, as you know, is really all about focusing on customer problems and trying to understand what they need. But I think in particular, doing this customer preview program with Lexis Plus AI, where basically the customers are learning alongside us and giving us really deep feedback about their experience. And then we go ahead and quickly turn that around and it comes back into the product and they can see that. It's really built this two-way relationship of trust and a kind of a deeper communication that's really enriched what we're able to do for our customers. And I think it's enriched their understanding of the system that we're building for them. So I can't say enough positive things about these preview programs. We invest a tremendous amount of time and effort in them because it's so worthwhile. And I know our customers do as well. What I've been hearing in particular around Protégé, a lot of feedback on drafting. Again, this is a theme you're hearing from me during this whole podcast, but because it's so important to the daily lives of attorneys, and they're really focused on it. What I'm hearing is they want to be able to draft many different types of documents. They want to draft longer and more complex documents across transactional litigation. And of course, they want to use their own documents as grounding for these generative documents. And so drafting complex documents is a really hard thing, whether you're a human or a model. And so we're very focused on iterating in these areas and really refining our approach so that we can provide a good, high quality result for Protégé users. So this is one area where we've been really focused and the customer feedback has been super, super helpful in helping us refine our approach.
So Serena, based on what you've told us about the integration, the customized profiles, the ability to learn from past work, Protégé really seems like poised to redefine how legal research is conducted. So what would you say the specific advantages are to lawyers and other legal professionals, in terms of speed, in terms of accuracy, and, even depth of insight when conducting legal research?
Legal research has basically been about finding the right information when you don't necessarily know either what you're looking for or exactly how to find it. Certainly, this was my experience when I was a lawyer, and I will tell you, as someone who has worked specifically on search, that my Boolean searching skills are not awesome and never have been. Full admission there.
So she's so comfortable telling that to two librarians.
Yes.
Just, it's like some people are good at math. I'm just not good at Boolean searching. But so, if you're like me or a lot of legal researchers, doing those things involves a lot of searching, reviewing, and then searching and then reviewing and doing it again and again and again. And, you guys know this very, very well. And you have to do that to make sure there isn't anything you've missed. And it's a ton of work and no one loves it. Well, there may be a few people out there who love it and bless them. But most people really don't like it and a lot of people hate it. And that's just in preparation for the actual task itself, which is, the drafting of the motion or the analyzing of the contract that required the research in the first place. And so if you think about this as the fundamental problem, there's a few ways that Protégé is transforming that process I just described. So it's fast. It does the searching, the reading, and then could take that next step in your workflow to use that information to draft the motion or analyze the contract, for example. And you can also think about fast another way around performance. So Protégé is the fastest generative AI platform for legal research on the market. And, if you're doing something and it takes, 3 minutes to load on the screen, as opposed to, I can start reading it in, after a few seconds over and over and over again, that makes a huge difference. Also true, Protégé is accurate. So Protégé has all of our Lexis know-how built into it. So every response is going to be informed by authoritative content, relevant metadata, Shepard's data, our taxonomies, etc. And we're refining our system constantly. So accuracy is super, super important. It cannot be accurate enough, right? It's conversational, meaning as you're progressing your work through dialogue with the system, you're engaging in a more efficient, in a more natural way, and you're going to be much more successful than searching and getting lost on your own. Searching is a transactional thing. So I search, review, and then it's over, and I start all over again. In a conversational system, the system holds the thread of the conversation just like you do. And it can quickly learn through the course of a short conversation much more about your intent and what you need. And then it's personalized, as we've been talking about. Protégé knows you. It's going to use your past work to inform its responses, and you aren't starting from zero with every query like you were before.
So you had mentioned it breaks it down into like little steps. So, I mean, how would you describe that from a technical standpoint? What is that?
Working with these models is so different from the way that we worked with AI in the past.
Is it a big model? Is it mini models? Is it fine tuning? What exactly is it?
Yeah, so it's a form of fine tuning where we instruct the model. We can instruct the model to tell itself how to do things, or we ask another model to tell a second model how to do things. And then the second model informs the first model about, okay, here's what I found. Now, what do you do something with it. So, and the way in which we compose these complex systems is, in a lot of ways, at least from my experience, quite different from how we operated before, because you're creating a set of instructions that is often in natural language rather than having to be translated into code and various other languages in code, because the models are fluent in the same language that we're fluent in, which I find fascinating. And it also has kind of transformed the way that we work with this technology.
So would that, Greg even knows what I'm going to ask. Smiling. So would you consider that like agents, or is it something different?
Yeah. So agentic models is definitely an area that we are working with, experimenting with. And I think that what we just talked about starts to get into this area. So agentic models are models that have a much higher ability to plan and reason. And so they could do things like, if you say, I want to do a certain task, make a plan for me. And then I'll review that plan and then execute the plan. And then go back and look at your resulting output and check it against the plan to make sure you haven't missed anything. So that's a very simple flow, but that gives you an idea of what an agentic model can do, which is, I think, much more successfully elaborate than, you know, the earlier generations of models that we were dealing with, even as recently as last
In this
year.
case, you might do the research to draft the document, and then the agent would check and make sure that the document was reflective, or the document was reflective of the research that you did.
Yeah. It's also possible that the model would do all of that itself with your human,
and then just check it and be like, okay, you're good to go.
Well, or I think a researcher, a lawyer would be more comfortable with being the human in the loop, so that at every step, the model could ask, do you want to review what my work so far?
All right. Before we get to the crystal ball question, this whole conversation, and this may be a crazy thought that's just coming from me, so take it for that. But you've got this, you know, this personalization, this individual personalization, how Protégé in Lexis works with the individual attorneys. You've got this conversational system that you're setting up. You're doing voice and multimedia over time in this. So I could see attorneys almost having a relationship kind of with their legal research tool.
No, it's her. Stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
So, but I mean,
Don't
this
go
is a
there.
question that we've been having with, you know, with the chat GPTs and whatnot, that especially like with the voice interactions, that, you know, there's this kind of super personalization of it where they're almost thinking like it's, you know, they're they're turning it into a person.
You know me.
Since
You
I can't
know me.
say the other word. Is this something that you guys have thought about as far as, you know, it's such a personalized experience? Has there been any conversation about either enhancing that or maybe pulling that back a little bit? I don't know what kind of conversations you're having on that front, if you're having those at all. And like I said, this may be a crazy idea just coming from me from this conversation.
I think it's, you know, it's an interesting idea. I'm certainly aware of, you know, in the general purpose model world, where you have companies like Character.ai that are creating very realistic sounding and seeming representations of people to act as, you know, companions and guides and helpers and more. We've been very focused on making very powerful, useful tools for attorneys where they stay in control and they are the human in the loop. So what I do know is when we talked to legal professionals about voice, whether it was law students or lawyers, the thing that they were most interested in was not the personality of the voice, but that it sound professional and authoritative, but not overly informal or friendly. I found this very interesting when we did this research. Now, this was some years ago, and again, voice was relatively new. But I think if you asked customers and law students the same question today, you might get very much the same answer. They're not looking for a friend or a companion. They're looking for an assistant, for help, knowledgeable help, professional help. And I think that, you know, this is an area that is really ripe for exploration. How best to do that? How best to create an assistant that is going to be the most helpful in a personalized way. So then what that means, what the the kind of voice or the intonation that will vary from user to user. So I think you're right in what you say that people will want to have different manifestations depending on who they are and what they're doing. But as far as taking it up into something that is a virtual legal assistant or something like that, that's not something that we're focused on at all, and it's not something that we've heard from our customers that they want. I think it's an interesting idea, but not something that we're focused on right now. We're focused on being helpful and useful in the way that our customers want.
So no Scarlett Johansson voice or Matthew McConaughey voice, although that would be kind of cool.
Would be cool.
All right.
Nice.
All right. Well, now it's time for the crystal ball question. So, Serena, where do you see as the challenges or the changes that over the next couple of years that you think we're going to face with this type of technology?
So 2 to 5 years, it seems like a really long time.
It's so long.
How about 6 months, right?
I know. So we're all agreed on that caveat. In terms of the market, I think we're just still at the beginning of a sea change. I think we all really know that this is, the wave is just starting to form, and we all don't really know where it's going to go. But I think legal organizations who are prepared for their AI moment, if you will, because they've retained and organized and prepared their data, are going to pull ahead, way ahead of others who haven't, who are still struggling in this space and continue to struggle. And the organizations that have done that, that's a big investment. It's hard. And so, if you haven't started, this is the time to start making those plans and really learning about what you need to do in order to catch this wave. The other thing I would say is the challenge for legal information providers like Lexis is to support that transformation. We need to help our customers unlock the deep value in their data while we continue to evolve alongside this rapid technological change. And I think we've been able to make some really good progress in both of those areas. I'd also say, when I think about this, our advantage at Lexis is our customer focus and understanding, the authoritative legal data that we have, the know-how that we have in this space, and our ability to use the latest emerging technologies to give our customers what they want and what they need.
Well, thank you, Serena, for that. Serena Wellen, Vice President, Product Management, LexisNexis Legal and Professional. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today.
Yeah, thanks.
My pleasure.
And of course, thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek in Review podcast. If you enjoy the show, share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you, so reach out to us on LinkedIn.
Serena, we'll put some links in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to find out more about Protégé or to reach out if they have more questions?
For more information on Protégé, you can go to LexisNexis.com and navigate to our Lexis Plus AI product page. Lots of information there. And if you have questions for me or would just like to connect, please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, so you could just search for Serena Wellen.
Thank you. And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you very much, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, Marlene, I'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.